So here we go. Now today, instead of us being given the point, we are given the one of the trig values, and we have to figure out the other trig values. Okay, so they're giving us a trig value. All right. So the first thing that we're gonna do, we're going to acknowledge. We're gonna use our graph. All right, I'm going to help you guys hopefully remember something. So here, when we have our ordered plane, every section has its values, right? We talked about the positive, negative, 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 positive, negative quadrants, right? All right, so those all have other values that we want to pay attention to, okay? From doing our trig values yesterday, we should have came to the conclusion that each value has a quadrant that it's going to be positive in, okay? All trig values are positive in quadrant 1. So all 6 trig values are going to be positive in quadrant 1, okay? Only sine and cosine, not cosine. Ooh, don't write that. Only sine and cosecant are positive in quadrant 2, okay? Only tan and cotangent are positive in quadrant 3, okay? And only cosine and secant are positive in quadrant 4. Okay, so if I draw an angle and it falls in the given quadrant, I now know what should be negative and what should be positive. Okay, now a way to help remembering this is all students take calculus.
That ain't true.
Okay, all students take calculus. Now, all right, so here we go. We have sine theta. So that's, we're going to start here with 3 pi over 2. What is this telling us? This is our starting point. This is telling us our restrictions, okay? This is telling us that we are only going to be focused between 3 pi over 2 and 2 pi. So we're only focused at 3 pi over 2 and 2 pi. That means I'm not using quadrant 2, quadrant 1, or quadrant 3. I'm only using quadrant 4. Does that make sense? It gave me a restriction on where my angle lies. Okay. The reason why you need that restriction is because of reference angles. More than one angle can have the same sign and absolute value of sine, cosine, and tangent. Okay. That's because their reference angles can all be the same. So that's why. What? I was trying to make my angles and they just, you saw it, huh?
Are we still doing the steps from 1 and 2? Or is it different for this one?
The steps are going to be the same.
Okay.
Okay, but step 1 changed. Step 1 is we have to identify where's our angle. Okay. All right. Step 2 is using what we have. So it told us that sine theta equals -5 over 13. Okay. What is the ratio for sine? In terms of y and x? No.
It's
y over r. This equals y over r. Okay, this ratio tells me now that my y is -5 and my r is 13. So when I'm drawing out my sketch to help me, I know that my radius is 13, that my y is -5, but I'm missing my what?
Your x.
My x. I'm missing my x. Okay. So step 2 is to figure out what are you missing. So 1 is our restriction. Step 2 is what are you missing? Okay. And what are we missing? Our x. So now we're going to solve for x. How would I solve for x of a right triangle?
Oh, I know this one.
Go.
Wait a second. I don't have my notes. Y over R.
Okay, he didn't have it. So it was Pythagorean theorem. Pythagorean theorem. Okay, for us, because it's xy, it's x squared plus y squared equals r squared. My x, my r, and my y. We're looking for our x, so we plug in what we don't have.
You divide R by X. You go X by R.
It's okay.
I'm right. No.
We're subtracting. Guys, don't trick him. We're subtracting
It's
all
a
the time.
sign.
Yes,
It's a sign. I'm just looking for it.
We're just looking for x. So we have x squared plus 25 equals 169. So I'm going to subtract 25. And I'm left with x squared equals 144. Take the square root. So x equals 12. So now I know the value of my x.
Well, if you just divide it. It's the same.
I never divided.
But if you did, same answer faster.
Negative, ghostwriter. Negative.
Take a read this one, give me some advice.
Okay.
I make my own formulas. I'm just following.
Okay, cool. All right, step 4 is to find the rest of your trig values. Okay, do I have everything I need on my triangle to find my trig values?
Yes.
Yes, I do. I have everything I needed. So here we go. Well, we already have sine. Let's find its reciprocal. What is my cosecant theta? Negative 13 over 5. Okay, remember cosecant theta is going to be your y over your, I didn't write that right, r over y. I'm trying. R over y, which is going to be 13 over negative 5. Boom. All right, now we're going to go cosine theta. What is the rule for cosine theta?
X over R.
X over R. What is my x?
Oh,
12. What is my R? 13. Good job. No. What are we on now? We got to do the, what's the reciprocal of cosine?
second.
SEC, secant. And so instead of x over r, it becomes r over x, which we already did. We did it. It's right here. We already had sine. They gave us our sine.
Okay. Don't have to.
I don't. All right. Tangent theta is going to be y over x. And what's my y? Negative 5. And what's my x? 12. Boom. And then cotangent theta is x over y, which is going to be 12 over negative 5. Okay, so we found the remaining trig functions. All right, so let's recap what we did. 1, we figured out our restrictions. Check, right? 2, we then used the given trig function to draw our triangle where it needs to be and identify what was missing. Okay, for us, what was missing? Our x. To find a missing piece of a right triangle, you use good old-fashioned Pythagorean, right? And now we use Pythagorean, we found our x, and now that we have all 3 sides of our right triangle, can we find all of our trig ratios? Yes, that's what we're doing. Okay, yeah? All right, let's do one more and then I'm done. All right, so we're now doing secant theta. Okay, step 1 is to figure out where are you restricted? Where can you not be? Well, first off, looking at our secant has to be negative. Okay, where's secant positive at? 4. So that means that is automatically eliminated, right? So it can't be there. Next, it tells us it's between pi and 2 pi. Well, what's left between pi and 2 pi? Well, these are eliminated because we're between pi and 2 pi, right? So we're in quadrant 3. So when we draw this, it has to be in quadrant 3. Okay, so step 2 is to figure out what are we missing. So secant theta equals negative 2 over 1. What is the ratio for secant? What is the ratio for secant? It's our r over our x. Secant is our r over our x, right?
Why is it? Why?
because it's secant. Cosecant is y. Okay? Secant is r over x. So I know that my r is 2. I know that my x equals -1, but what am I missing? Y. Okay? Because I'm in this quadrant, I know that y is going to have to be what? It has to be negative. In quadrant 3, your y is what? Negative. Okay? So I figured out everything that I could, and now I'm left to solve for my y. So step 3 is we're going to use Pythagorean to solve for what we're missing. Again, we're using x squared plus y squared equals r squared. We see that? I'm going to plug in my x. I have -1 squared plus y squared equals 2 squared. So y squared equals 4 minus 1. Yes.
Why is the one negative when it has the -2 in the equation?
So your radius can never be negative. So even though the negative's in the numerator, the negative doesn't apply to the radius.
Okay.
Good question.
That's every time?
Your radius is always positive. Okay, so if something has to be negative, it will never be your radius. Because remember, radius is your distance from the origin, and is distance ever negative?
No.
No. All right. So therefore, y equals the square root of 3. So now we know the value of our y. It's negative square root of 3. Do I have all the sides I need to find my trig ratios? All right, I'm going to stop talking to you, and you're going to find your trig ratios.
What the heck? What the heck?
Find your trig ratios. Step 4.
I'm gonna go ahead and wait.
Try it.
You come back.
All right, guys, really quick. So another thing, a reason why all students take calculus is helpful is to make sure that you have the right values for your trig in the end. So even if you forget to put the negative when you're working it through, if you go back and you realize that more than tangent is positive, that means you forgot a negative, right? Or if your tangent isn't positive, then you forgot to make it a positive, okay? So here we go. First up is sine, right? So we have sine theta, and sine theta equals our y over our r. And our y was over 2. Because in quadrant 3, your y values are negative. Okay. Now we're going to do cosecant theta. Cosecant theta equals r over y. So that gives us -2 over the square root of 3. However, I have to rationalize. And after I rationalize, I end up with -2 square root of 3 over 3. How do we do?
I didn't do that.
Gotta make sure you rationalize. Okay. Now we're going to do cosine theta. Cosine theta is x over r. So we have -1 over 2. There's our third one. Secant theta we already have. There's 4. Now we have tan theta. Tan theta is going to be y over x. Our y is negative square root of 3. Our x is -1. A negative divided by a negative is a positive. There's our fifth one. And our final one, cotangent theta equals x over y. And our x is -1. Our y is negative square root of 3. We end up rationalizing, and after we rationalize, we end up with square root of 3 over 3. Okay. Okay, so remember, with the whole all students take calculus, it's your chance to check. The only thing that should be positive are your tangent and your cotangent. So everything else should be negative except tangent and cotangent. Okay. All right, so you have your assignment already. Your assignment is due Monday. Okay. So